Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all participants who have joined this webinar. Welcome back to our third webinar series. And first of all, I am Catherine Sugara, and I am the moderator of this webinar. And the topic of webinar is strategy management and company sustainability imperative and paradoxes, which will be presented by Mrs. Retno Budi Lestari and our invited speaker, Mr. Zulhilmi Ahmad Fauzi. Okay, before we start this webinar, allow me to read the speaker CV. First, Mrs. Retno Budi Lestari. She is a lecturer in Universitas Multidata Palembang. She was undergraduate and postgraduate from University Jenderal Sudirman Purwokerto, and she is expertise in marketing and entrepreneurship. Right, Mrs. Retno? And our invited speaker was Mr. Zulhilmi Ahmad Fauzi. He was a university lecturer in Department of Public Management School of Governance, College of Law, Governance and International Study, University Utara Malaysia. And academic qualification, he was Bachelor of Accounting with Honors from University Utara Malaysia and Master of Business Administration from University Utara Malaysia too. And he was expertise in organization management, organizational leadership, small and medium enterprises, strategic management, and he also teaching like leadership in public management, negotiation and bargaining skills, principle of management, and strategic management. Right before I think that's our speaker and invited speaker CV. Let's start to the webinar. Please welcome to Mrs. Retno Budi Lestari. Time is yours, please.
Okay. Thank you for Mrs. Catherine for this opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to Universitas MDP and also University Utara Malaysia. It's a good opportunity for being here in international webinar series with all participants here, and also our invited speaker today, Mr. Zulhilmi Fauzi. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, Mr. Okay. Salam perkenalan dari kami dari Universitas MDP. Okay. I'm going to share my presentation. Saya izin. Yes. Okay, regarding our topic today about strategic management and sustainability competitive advantage. Dimulai dengan sebuah good quotation from Niels Bohr. That is, prediction is very difficult, especially about the future. So, yeah, the future. Why is difficult? Because we don't know what will happen in the future. Even tomorrow, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So, we are now facing, kita saat ini menghadapi lingkungan eksternal, turbulence environment full of volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity, or we call VUCA. Fenomena VUCA ini beberapa tahun terakhir ini cukup booming dengan adanya disruptif ya berapa fenomena yang kita hadapi. Menurut laporan World Economic Forum, the future of job future, menyatakan bahwa saat ini kita semuanya menghadapi double disruption, technology disruption, and pandemic disruption. So, are we ready for this condition? Jadi saat ini memang kita sedang menghadapi era disruptif, pandemic and teknologi. Ya, beberapa tahun yang lampau, ya mungkin 2 tahun yang lalu, kita semuanya organisasi bisnis itu menghadapi disruptif pandemic. Ya, di sini adalah beberapa perubahan kompleksitas yang muncul, ya seperti perubahan di dalam pola konsumsi masyarakat, perilaku konsumen, kemudian juga ditambah lagi dengan teknologi, penggunaan teknologi yang sudah sangat masif, digitalisasi, itu both are very difficult or complex for the organization. So, are we ready for this, or organization ready for this situation? So, future is difficult to predict, but we need to estimate. Yeah, we need to predict with our trend today. So we need a strategy. Strategy can be defined an integrated and coordinated set of commitments and actions designed to exploit core competencies and gain a competitive advantage. So, what are our keywords today? We have 2 keywords. 2 kata kunci yang ada dalam strategi adalah core competencies and competitive advantage. Yeah. Strategic process, both are very important. So, most strategies are built on specific beliefs about the future. Yeah, that is what the previous section about the future is very difficult to predict. So, we have to do a strategy. Ya, 2 kata kunci tadi adalah core competencies dan competitive advantage. What is core competencies? Yeah, represents combination of resources and capabilities distinguish the companies from its competitors. Jadi ini adalah kompetensi inti merupakan resources atau kita sebut sebagai sumber daya ya, dan kapabilitas. Sumber daya, resources ini bisa kita lihat bahwa ada tangible and intangible resources yang dimiliki oleh organisasi perusahaan. Tangible bisa kita lihat adalah gedung, mesin, ya, equipment, or aset tidak bergerak, ya. Kemudian intangible resources ada kita bisa lihat information system, technology, kemudian goodwill and brand value is the intangible resources. So capability is about how to combine, bagaimana kita mengorganisasikan resources tersebut, ya, supaya digunakan untuk mengimplementasikan strategi. Nah, core competence ini harus distinguish or berbeda, unik dibandingkan pesaing lainnya menurut Hamel dan Prahalat. Jadi, for example ya, kita bisa ambil contoh kalau core competency ini beberapa adalah memiliki karakteristik unique and different, providing giving customer value different beyond the competitor. Jadi customer value bisa kita pilih, so simple example, misalkan di bisnis kuliner, ya, culinary business. Tentu saja value yang ingin diantarkan ke customer, misalkan adalah rasa makanan yang enak, formula, resipi, ya, rasa makanan yang enak yang tidak bisa ditiru oleh perusahaan lain. Misalkan KFC dengan rasa ayam gorengnya yang renyah dan juga rasanya yang memang tidak bisa ya disamai gitu dengan komputer lainnya. Customer value. It's a competitive differentiation, ya, berbeda dibandingkan dengan pesaing lainnya. Kemudian contoh lainnya adalah kalau di local company like Gojek, ya Gojek memiliki customer value bahwa merupakan sebuah perusahaan transportasi online berbasiskan mobile apps yang bisa digunakan untuk beberapa layanan sekaligus. Ya, pada awalnya memang untuk transportasi online, tetapi kemudian merambah diversifikasi untuk beberapa layanan seperti food, layanan logistik, bahkan financial technology, gitu. Dan ini merupakan value tersendiri bagi penggunanya karena bisa merupakan satu aplikasi, satu pintu. Artinya bahwa customer memiliki experience. Giving customer experience is the customer value of Gojek. Is different from its competitor. Ya, jadi bisa dalam satu aplikasi bisa menggunakan beberapa layanan, ya, kesehatan, kemudian juga logistik, layanan financial technology, finance, ya, like that. And third, extendability, ya, core competence characterized by extendability. Extendability artinya ini bisa diperluas, ya. Resources or capability, ya. Resources dan capability yang dimiliki oleh sebuah perusahaan itu bisa di-apply in berbagai area, ya, dalam berbagai area. Ya, misalkan kayak tadi Gojek memiliki kapabilitas di dalam keinovatifan, ya, teknologi itu bisa diaplikasikan untuk layanan lainnya. Jadi pada awalnya itu adalah transportasi online, ya, kemudian bisa berkembang model bisnisnya itu untuk pengantaran makanan, logistik, kemudian di financial technology. Jadi model bisnis di Gojek itu bisa berkembang gitu ya, bisa memiliki inovasi model bisnis. Jadi extendability ini adalah capability itu bisa dikembangkan di area-area bisnis yang lain. Hal tersebut juga sama contohnya di merek Samsung seperti elektronik, ya, elektronik Samsung di Korea itu bahwa bisa kemampuan quality good product, ya, keinovatifan itu bisa diterapkan bukan hanya untuk smartphone saja, tapi produk lainnya, lini produk lainnya seperti ya home appliances. Oke. Ya, ini contoh lainnya buat di Google. Siapa yang nggak tahu Google, ya? Ada skill software engineering, innovative work culture, yeah, good and friendly company image. So this is about what is strategic management. I think it's simple, yeah. It's about planning, monitoring, analyzing, and assessing about goal.
Sorry, Mrs. Retno, your slide didn't move. Didn't change your slide. Mrs. Retno? Okay, Mrs. Retno?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I think I lost my connections for a while. Okay, it's okay. I'll continue. And then I'll start a share screen. I think I'll start connection. Okay, what strategic management process? Yes. I think all students here already know that strategic management process consists of 5 phases. First, starting with goal setting and then analysis, strategic formulation, implementation, and the last is strategic evaluation. Yeah, about goal setting is about how to setting goal. Ya, bagaimana menetapkan tujuan based on vision and mission organization and how to motivate personnel of organization. Fixing short-term objective. Jadi tujuan di sini adalah memiliki tujuan jangka pendek dan tujuan jangka panjang. And then next stage is analysis. So I think it's analysis. We have facing about external environment and internal environment. External di sini ada 5 lingkungan menurut ya. Bargaining power suppliers, threat of substitute, bargaining power of buyer, threat of needs. Kemudian next in the internal environment, ya, owner, employees, and customers. Ya, di dalam tahap analisis ini biasanya adalah untuk mengidentifikasikan to identify strength and weakness from internal environment and opportunities and threat from external environment. Okay, after that, strategy formulation. Memformulasikan strategi, jadi langkah apa yang akan dilakukan oleh perusahaan based on the resources availability, based on data, identifying capability of your resources. So, tadi kita membahas di bagian sebelumnya, ya, awal mula tadi adalah core competence. Jadi bagaimana di sini kapabilitas dan mengeksplorasi kompetensi inti ini adalah pada bagian strategi formulation. Gitu. Jadi ini tadi ada strategi formulation itu muncul, ada strategi diversifikasi, growth strategy, less than 10% of formulation strategies are successfully. Ya, hanya 10% dari tahap formulasi strategi ini adalah yang sukses. Next, formulation. Ya, versus implementation. Jadi sini ada tahap implementasi. It's different ya between strategy formulation and strategy implementation. Strategy formulation is position before action. Jadi memformulasikan atau merancang bagaimana strategi itu adalah before action, and implementation is during action. Formulation focus on effectiveness and implementation focus on efficiency. Strategy formulation is primarily an intellectual process. Jadi bagaimana kalau formulasi itu membutuhkan ide-ide kreatif, bottom up, ya, membutuhkan teamwork yang solid. Ya, jadi di sini merupakan intellectual process. Sedangkan di bagian strategy implementation, operationally. Jadi di sini adalah bagaimana teknis, ya, primarily operational. Formulation requires good intuition and analytical skills, and then implementation, the main thing is to open process, requires coordination between several individuals, and the implementation requires special motivation and leadership skill. Okay, the last is evaluation stage. Ini checking the basic of company strategy. Jadi kalau basic untuk formulasinya adalah bagaimana analisis, ya, lingkungan internal, eksternal tadi, kemudian compare desired outcome with current outcome. Jadi bagaimana akan membandingkan target capaian dengan hasilnya. Kemudian need certain adjustment if required. Jadi apa yang menghalangi pencapaian tujuan itu perlu dievaluasi jika nanti menginginkan untuk tahap perbaikan selanjutnya. Oke, kalau kita sudah menjalankan proses strategic management, why then many strategy have failed? Kenapa beberapa strategi yang diimplementasikan oleh beberapa perusahaan itu bisa gagal, sudah gagal? Kenapa? Kalau sudah mengimplementasikan proses dari manajemen strategi. Not something executing and no differentiation. We have take a look at example. Jadi nggak ada diferensiasi. Consultation with lower level is important. Di sini adalah bagaimana teamwork dan bagaimana motivate dari personil semuanya di anggota organisasi sangat penting. Ini adalah bagaimana peran leader. Peran leader is an important thing for formulation and implementation strategies, even in crisis condition. Lack of communication to team with logic after formulation. Ini yang tadi saya sampaikan bahwa kurangnya komunikasi dengan tim dalam tahap formulasi atau implementasi itu juga merupakan salah satu faktor kegagalan sebuah strategi. Strategi is group of choices, cohesion is necessary between them. So kita contoh di sini, for example, untuk local retail adalah mataharimall.com berdiri tahun 2015 dan mungkin tidak bisa, ini sudah nggak dengar lagi, tahun 2018 sudah digabungkan dengan perusahaan dari satu grup yaitu matahari.com karena revenue terus menurun bahkan ini terjadi sebelum pandemi kenapa? Karena tidak ada keunikan dalam produk dan layanannya dan persaingan di industri e-commerce itu cukup berat di sini Kemudian yang Yahoo mungkin di sini mungkin Bu Catherine masih punya email Yahoo. Di sini. Email Yahoo adalah perusahaan teknologi, ada email web portal juga dan ini juga lambat dalam mengadaptasikan beradaptasi dengan perubahan di lingkungan digital, lingkungan teknologi apalagi dinyatakan bahwa untuk leader yang terakhir adalah Marisa Maya dianggapnya kurang jam terbangnya kurang sehingga tidak mampu mengatasi berbagai hambatan di dalam kemajuan Yahoo. Dan Nokia juga pada awalnya punya kompetensi inti tapi karena lambat di dalam melakukan inovasi dianggapnya tadi ada OS-nya ada Symbian yang merupakan OS tertutup berbayar dan pada saat mulai perkembangannya udah mulai ada Android yang free maka Nokia tidak tanggap dengan hal tersebut akhirnya ditinggalkan oleh customer-nya. Kemudian yang cukup lama adalah Kodak juga demikian Kodak itu adalah bermain pada kamera analog Jadi pada saat tahun 90-an ini adalah mungkin boomingnya tapi ketika itu sudah perusahaan merek-merek perusahaan Asia itu Casio, kemudian Canon itu sudah mulai mencoba untuk berinovasi di digital kamera. So dia lambat gitu. Kodak ini lambat dalam mengantisipasi apa yang akan terjadi in the future. Nah, saya bilang tadi adalah in the future, tapi bisa diantisipasi, bisa dipredik dengan melihat tren saat ini dan dengan data analytical. Oke, ini adalah beberapa contoh perusahaan yang telah gagal dalam mengimplementasikan strategi. Yes.
Mrs. Retno, maybe your slide didn't change. You don't have to slideshow it.
Oh, maybe connection is not stable. Di sini ada berubah gitu. Oke, saya stop aja.
Slideshow-nya mungkin dimatikan saja.
Di off saja. Oke. Apakah sudah bisa terlihat?
Oke.
Yes.
Baik, Bu Retno.
Strategic imperative This strategic imperative is business goal, objective or target that has the highest priority. Jadi sebenarnya ada tujuan yang memiliki prioritas paling diprioritaskan gitu pada saat ini, pada satu kondisi atau target yang diprioritaskan. Misalkan pada saat terjadi pandemik, during pandemic organisasi itu memiliki highest priority strateginya pada melakukan efisiensi Ya, efisiensi bagaimana mengurangi cash flow supaya company bisa sustain sambil melakukan inovasi, juga mengadopsi teknologi gitu, sambil melihat situasi. Nah, untuk menjaga efisiensi dan sustainable dalam masa pandemi ini merupakan highest priority ya, pada mungkin 2 tahun lalu during pandemic ya, gitu, highest priority-nya supaya bisa defend gitu. Strateginya adalah strategi bertahan gitu. Kemudian after pandemic tahun 2021-2022 ini memang prediksinya adalah tahap bukan lagi ini ya, tapi recovery. Bukan lagi pandemi ini, kita bisa move on. Jadi perusahaan bisa, organisasi bisa move on, bisa accelerate their business gitu. Ya. Jadi highest priority misalkan digital imperatif ya. Transformasi digital yang sekarang bisa diimplementasikan di semua sektor. Itu merupakan juga strategi imperatif ya, apalagi untuk tahun next ya gitu. Jadi ini merupakan imperatif strategi. And then sustainability has become an imperative for strategic management of companies and their business models gitu. Jadi intinya tadi adalah the points is sustainability. Jadi bagaimana menjaga keberlanjutan perusahaan ya dengan bisnis model. Jadi memang harus ada transformasi bisnis model ya untuk saat ini. Yang awalnya itu adalah bisnis model berfokus pada apa namanya ya, kalau bisa dibilang adalah tadi aset-aset yang heavy asset ya, misalnya gedung, peralatan gitu kan, yang mesin-mesin seperti itu. Transform to light asset like teknologi, sistem informasi gitu kan ya. Inovatifan itu adalah suatu hal yang transformasi di era digital ini. Is sustainability. Sustainability as a central factor in their companies long-term competitiveness. Jadi sustainability ini adalah merupakan kunci atau faktor penting bagi perusahaan untuk persaingan dalam jangka panjang. Oke. So how to build sustainable competitive advantage? Ya, tadi ya ini disebutkan saja. Jadi ada beberapa ya core competencies. Anda harus tahu bagaimana apa namanya company's core competencies. Kemudian find the competitive market opportunities. Jadi tetap melihat peluang-peluang pasar, gitu ya. Tetap mengembangkan bisnis saat ini. Diversifikasi. Strategic agility. Strategic agility is the ability of management to constant and respond, sense and respond to changing environment. Jadi sebenarnya agility ini adalah suatu fleksibilitas gitu ya, to adapting, beradaptasi dengan apa namanya lingkungan yang cepat sekali berubah tadi ya, yang difenomenakan dengan VUCA tadi. Kemudian bukan hanya strategic agility saja, tapi juga we need resilience ya. Resilience is ketangguhan di dalam menghadapi segala kejutan, dan tiba-tiba kalau sekarang itu unpredictable ya, jadi kan ambigu tentang apa yang akan terjadi next gitu. Tomorrow we don't know. Resilience ya. Resilience, ketangguhan dalam menghadapi segala kejutan, dan strategi-strategi yang mungkin gagal kita juga harus tangguh dalam strategi cadangannya itu apa. Ya, ini ada beberapa contoh saja. Ini next adalah top 5 global companies versi Forbes 500 ya, majalah Forbes. Jadi ini adalah top global company yang memiliki revenue paling tinggi, yaitu Walmart adalah raksasa retail di Amerika yang memiliki pendapatan paling tinggi. Ini tahun 2021. Kemudian State Grid di urutan kedua, di perusahaan electricity power di Cina. Kemudian juga Amazon nomor 3, CNBC Petroleum, and then Sinopec, Chinese Oil and Chemical Company. Ya, ini menunjukkan bahwa memang perusahaan-perusahaan Cina dengan pertumbuhan ekonomi Cina yang cukup bagus, itu cukup berkiprah di dunia global ya. Cukup bersaing di persaingan global. Oke, untuk pemain lokal, saya kira tadi sudah saya sampaikan bahwa Gojek, itu Tokopedia, itu memiliki sustainable competitive advantage selama Gojek itu 2010 ya. Nah, untuk Tokopedia sebagai e-commerce yang nomor 1 penggunanya di Indonesia. Kemudian the last is conclusion. The strategic management process is based on the belief that organizations should continually monitor internal and external events and trends so that timely changes can be made as needed. Jadi perubahan itu harus cepat, timely changes. Ya. Strategic management is all about gaining and maintaining competitive advantage. Jadi ini adalah kata kunci yang penting tadi, core competence and competitive advantage, and sustainable competitive advantage, embeddedness as strategic imperative. Jadi imperatif strateginya adalah bagaimana membangun sustainable competitive advantage. Saya kira seperti itu. Okay, thank you. I think that's all for my presentation. Saya kembalikan ke moderator. Ms. Catherine Sugara. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Retno Lestari, for the presentation. And before we continue to our second speaker, maybe I want to talk to our participants, to all participants. If you have any question, you can write your question in column chat, right? Okay, maybe we continue to Mr. Zulhilmi Fauzi. Time is yours, Mr. I'm sorry, Mister. Maybe the.
I'll try again. Now, is it? Are you able to hear me right now?
I can hear you.
My voice clear?
Clear.
All right. Good. Right. All right. So, assalamualaikum all and good morning. Selamat pagi. All of you. Yeah.
Selamat pagi.
And as well, I want to make my thanks to the organizer, Universitas MDP, for the cordial invitation to me as a speaker for today. Right. So we're thanks well for Ms. Kathy as a moderator and Ibu Retno as well as the speaker. All right. So it's quite interesting we discussed on strategic management because we're thinking something related to future, masa depan. Yeah, masa hadapan. So when we think on this, well, it sounds like futuristic, so it means we're focusing on strategies, strategy. So if we look, the issues of sustainability, so it's a must for any organization. Jadi keharusan pada setiap organisasi, ya, untuk sustain. I don't know what to say sustain bahasa Indonesia. I'm not sure about that. Sorry about it. Okay, right? To sustain, right? When we want to sustain the organization, so there are many factors that we need to consider, right? So if we look at the moment right now, currently, so we know as Ibu Retno told us earlier, discussed earlier on COVID-19 pandemic, it does give a huge impact to the whole industry around the world. Okay, so we can see how does the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in sustaining the organizations or the company's operation. It's a big challenge. Satu cabaran yang besar. It's a big challenge. When we look on that challenge, right? So how to overcome the challenge, nak mengatasi, right? How to overcome the challenge, right? Cabaran, bagaimana harus diatasinya. So in this case, we have to look several of those factors that relates with the company sustainability, right? I need to share something here. Just a moment, let me share you the PowerPoint slides. Right, so if you look here on the strategic management company sustainability, so I put in a slideshow, this moment. All right. So this is slideshow. Is it viewable? Boleh lihat, eh? Slide, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So based on the strategic management company sustainability, being briefed by Ibu Retno a few minutes ago. Okay? So we knew that we can define strategic management in many ways. Let's say to focus on building the competitive advantage, right? But if you look in strategic management, to build competitive advantage, to sustain, it can be used. You can use any, any terminologies. Okay? But still, it relates to managing the future of the organization. We're focusing how to manage the future of the organization. Right? And one of those important things that we need to consider to manage the future of the organization is the issue of sustainability. So it's the right issue to discuss. It's the right issue to discuss on sustainability. Right now with COVID-19, global warming, right? And then as well, might be the change of the social norms. So that gives some kind of indication how we need to suit some of those factors that we need to consider in sustaining the organization's operations in the particular industry. Okay? So it can be defined in many ways, sustainability, but we need to look something on the sustainability, the three factors which is usually involved in sustaining the company or the business, which are the environment, social, and the governance or the economic. Okay? But I can say that the environment is the first. Lingkungan tu. Nomor satunya lingkungan. Itu yang harus dipertimbangkan. Consideration to be considered, right? Because it's uncertain. Ketidakpastiannya tinggi, right? It's very uncertain. It's the environment. Okay? Let's say if you look, because of COVID-19, right? It's uncertain how to overcome COVID-19. So usually the company with large or huge capital, large financial support, right, will face the problem, so, but the impact is not that big compared with the small and medium enterprises, right? Jadi perusahaan kecil dan sederhana, ya. Perusahaan kecil dan sederhana, SMEs, right? This will be most affected. In any countries around the world, SMEs are the most affected because of COVID-19, right? So it's a big challenge for them to sustain in the industry. So how to sustain? So it needs to be considered the environmental factors. As we knew that environmental factors, we have two types of environment, which are the external and the internal environmental factors. Okay, for external, it might be political factors, economic, social, and technological factors. Those four. Right? The change to a political regime, right? Might be the system as well. Okay, economic, let's say, right now, because COVID-19 is where it affects the economy, right? Unemployment, inflation, right? And then social as well, right? The trend, social trend right now, if we look how do they socializing using the social media. Okay, so right now something that doesn't use social media is being obsolete or being backward. And as well technology, right? So we know the technology right now because of IR 4.0, Industrial Relations 4.0, all right? So this might be some kind of impact for those companies who didn't, who never consider these environmental factors. So to show, to look for example, okay, if we look here, okay, right? So as I've shown here again, right, this consideration in company sustainability are those three, which are the kapabilitas organisasi, right? Organization capabilities, right? Technological advancement, kemajuan teknologi itu sendiri, teknologi, right? and environmental factors, right? Faktor-faktor lingkungan. Okay, those three. So that's a model for it. Okay, so it's just a typical model for in explaining on this business sustainability, right? If you look here, right, socio-economic, the internal factors, right, the structural and cultural attributes. So let's focus something on the internal factors, the internal. Okay, if you look at the internal side, internal organizational capabilities, right? This is what we need to build. The organization need to build, right, to sustain the company, the organization in facing the external environment. Okay. So typically, if we look on this sustainability, right, as we discussed it earlier, right, there are two types, which are the internal and external environmental factors. If we seen it, if we look on this handout here right now, this slide right now, okay, internal, typically the resources and culture, okay, sumber-sumbernya, dan juga budaya, right, both of them in the organization, which builds their strengths and weaknesses in facing the external threats, and as well to capture the opportunities, right? Segala peluang dan ancaman, right? If you're the external, as we discussed earlier, right, those political, economic, social, technological factors, and as well the natural physical environment, the change of climate change as well, right? How to sustain with the threat of, let's say, global warming, pemanasan global, right? So it means we need to reduce the pollution, right? Air pollution, noise pollution, especially air pollution, right? This all need to be addressed. If you look at the trend right now in Europe, right, most of them shifted to, let's say, in transportation, right? Dan transportasi, yeah? Okay, they're encouraging the use of hybrid and electric cars. They're not depending on those fuel like petrol and diesel anymore, right? It's focusing right now. This is trend encouragement on using hybrid and electric car to overcome this global warming. But at the same time, it gives some kind of challenge to these developing countries. Let's say in Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore might not be affected that much because they're a bit advanced in terms of economy compared to the other countries in Southeast Asia, right? So it's quite challenged there, right? Let's say to introduce electric car. So how this is the way, let's say, to sustain, right? Because right now there's a pressure, right? It's global pressure to overcome this global warming, right? So they encourage the usage of hybrid and electric cars, because we know using fossil fuel, I mean, it's the petrol or diesel, so it will produce carbon monoxide, isn't it? So carbon will leads to warming. Pemanasan sebab karbon kan? Ya, pemanasan puncanya karbon. Okay. So in this case, if you look, the West, the country in the West, okay, let's say the USA, European countries, let's say the developed countries, right, focusing on those initiatives, right, rather than those developing countries like us. So it's a big challenge. Okay. So for the local players, they need to face the global pressure at the same time. That might, I mean, give some kind of challenge in sustaining the company. For the large company, it should be fine. But for the small country, that will be a big challenge. And as well, at the same time, it's a threat. That's more the issues, the company sustainability, right? So I think we can go through the example of the resources and culture, Then the examples on the natural, physical, environment, political, economic, social, cultural, and technological forces, or factors, right? Now, if you look example here, right? So there are many types of strategies being implied, right, to sustain the presence of the organization of the company. Okay, if you look here, innovation, innovasi, right? So if you look on this example here, such as Apple, Tesla, Huawei, Amazon, right? Microsoft, Alibaba, another one here is Samsung, yes, Samsung. Yeah. Let me pick one example here, Apple. Okay, how Apple being relevant until now? Historically, if you look Apple, right, it's just a garage business. They just want to try to produce a personal computer, PC, computer, right? And they have a vision that they want those American, in one day, all Americans are able to own a personal computer. That's from Apple. That's the dream. That's how they start the venture. Personal computer, not the iPhone, isn't it? We knew Apple because of iPhone, but initially, pada mulanya, apa computer? It starts when they launched Apple Macintosh. That's the start, right? And then they evolve, and then they try to make more relevant. So we want to contribute something to society. That means to make the society more productive and innovative. So they introduce more devices. Okay. Let's say for entertainment, iPod, listening to music, iPod, right? And then you want to look on something, let's say to browse. So iPad. And then communication, iPhone. Right? So if you look there, it's still relevant until now. That's how they sustain. But in the same time, Apple as well has been pressured in terms of the environmental factors, such as what? Let's say the usage of plastic. So right now they try to use all recycled materials for the product. Might be if you own an iPhone, it's a recycled plastics. Right? You pay for such a huge price for it, but actually some of those parts is recycled plastics. Okay? That has been made by Apple. Okay? To try to sustain in the industry. Okay? Another one, this is a recent example. The latest example is Tesla. So we know Tesla, right? Right now, environment is global warming. The threat is global warming. So Tesla is there. Electric cars, isn't it? I think most of you know Tesla, isn't it? It's a company that produces the electric cars. So you know the name. So I can say Apple, you know Steve Jobs. For Tesla, I think you knew who is the founder, isn't it? Elon Musk, right? The founder of Tesla, right? So if you look how Tesla tried to revolutionize the automotive market in conforming with the threat of the environment, which is global warming. So it's now here it is right now, electric cars. That's an aspect of innovation, right? Another one, if you look, right, sorry. The change of core business, I think most of you knew those brands here. Most of us knew all these brands. Okay, Nokia, Kodak, and Olivetti. Okay, some of you might never knew this Olivetti, but we'll explain again, right? Nokia. Okay, so we knew Nokia because of what? Mobile phone, isn't it? Mobile phone, right? You might remember Nokia 3210, 3310, right? Nokia 3310, 10, okay? Or Nokia 3210, right? 3210, new language, right? So if you look there, right, they changed from mobile telecommunication to enterprise solution because why? Because they didn't accept that challenge. They think that they are still relevant. They made a wrong strategy. Nokia made a wrong strategy. with the emergence of this Android phone. We call it right now smartphone. So they're being left out. So that's why they shifted their core business to enterprise solutions, more in terms of enterprise communication. Okay? The same goes with Kodak. Okay? We knew Kodak because of what? Photography. Right? Now they changed to printing. It's still there, Kodak, but they shifted their core business. That's why they tried that being here, still being here right now. It means they're sustained, but it's not what they've been practiced earlier, what they've done earlier, which is what? Photography, right? They changed to printing. The second one is Olivetti. Okay, Olivetti is, I think some of us might be unfamiliar with this brand. Okay, this brand, if you know, is what? Typewriter, known for its typewriter. Okay, mesin type. Okay, I think in your language in Bahasa Indonesia means mesin tick, isn't it? Tick means type, isn't it? Yeah, that's the one. Typewriter. And right now they changed to telecommunication. They dispose all those, typewriters, right? Focusing on telecommunication. So that's a chief of core business, right? And then diversification. What is diversification? I think most of us knew this brand, Asia, isn't it? Is that right? Most of us knew, regardless. In Southeast Asia, right? If you're from Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, even Philippines, you might know this brand, Asia. So we know Asia is what? Aviation, airline, right? But to focus entirely on airline is quite dangerous. That's why they try to sustain, right? By diversifying to several types of businesses, such as if you look at, let's say, mobile telecommunication. They have mobile telecommunication, hospitality, hotels, tune hotels, right? Financing, okay? Food delivery, even retailing right now, just recently. Okay? The same goes, and let's say Petronas, right? Petronas is a Malaysian company focusing on oil and gas. Okay? But to make it more relevant to sustain the business, they diversify into education. They have university, private university named University Technology Petronas, UTP, right? Agriculture, Petronas Fertilizer, producing fertilizer. Okay? Motorsport, F1 sponsorship, Formula 1 sponsorship, and then trading. Okay? Retailing. Okay? That's made by Petronas. Okay? So usually we can conclude that to maintain the company sustainability in the industry, the first is to determine or to revise the organizational direction. We have to consider whether the direction is still relevant or not. And sometimes it needs adjustment because of what? Because of those changes in environment, especially the external environment. And that's why after we have determined, the organizations have determined the direction, so focusing on the adapting to the external environment. Nak sesuaikan, nak match. Okay? Lingkungan luar itu harus cocok, ya? Nak cocok dengan lingkungan luaran. Right? And the third, right? Kali ini mau cocok dengan yang dalaman pula. Lingkungan dalaman organisasi. Dalam batas organisasi. Right? In the organization itself. Right? So we will adjust the something inside with the external environment. Okay? That's typically in sustaining the industry. So for sure, let's discuss, in terms of imperatives in company sustainability. So we do look, there are several common issues there. As we discussed earlier, in terms of environment, okay? We discussed much on environment. If you look on the business model, okay? Nowadays, some of those business models are irrelevant because of technological changes, the norms change, right? Something might be obsolete. Let's say right now, retailing. If we look right now, if we observe retailing, most of the retailing right now are online based. I think this brand is quite well known. Let's say Shopee, Lazada, right? Those brands, let's say Shopee and Lazada, right? we try to use that platform for shopping, isn't it? Right? Because it saves time, especially, and it saves our energy. Right? Just imagine how many time do we need to spend if we have to go to that retail shop, but at the end, we couldn't get what we want. Rather than if we look in Shopee, so we know that's the product, okay? So we know whether it's available or not. Okay? That's my example on business model. Okay, the shift in the business model to sustain, right? Okay. The same goes as well in those organizations who changes their core business, let's say Kodak, Nokia, and Olivetti, to make them relevant. Okay? Another one, if you look here, is technological innovation. Internet of Things, the workforce, yes, the workforce itself, globalization and diverse. So right now we are trying to, it's not we, I think most of the world, right, around the world right now, okay, most of the countries, modern organization are considering on the diversity in organization. So in fact, human beings is there, it's diverse, right? So they need to adapt, the organization need to adapt with it, right? And then geopolitics as well, okay? Let's say Syrian conflict, Iraqi conflict, okay? Recently, this Russian and Ukraine conflict as well, that's geopolitics. Okay? Now, it gives some impact as well for those countries and for those organizations, right, which involve with those countries, right? Let's say this organization or company have trade with Russian. So it might have such an effect, right? We never know. In the future, there might be a sanction to the Russian because of this action. I mean, this conflict between Russia with Ukraine. Okay. Another one is natural resources, right? Let's say the crude oil and minerals. Okay. So we knew crude oil is important. Okay. For every nation around the world. Okay, we always go on the crude oil because this is the most important factor. Okay, as let's say in the Southeast Asia, mostly in Southeast Asia, the use of crude oil for the end products such as fuel like petrol and diesel, right, is vital. It's very important. Compared with Europe, with their shifting to hybrid and electric cars, right? So this is threat for those oil and gas companies. Okay. So the next is we're going to look on these current issues as we discussed it earlier, COVID-19, global warming, and then the demand of renewable energy, and as well as social inequality. So right now, as most of the population are getting more education and being more educated, so there's a realization that, among them, there should be an issue of equality. They knew what should be for them. That's the social inequality, right? And in terms of paradoxes, okay. I said usually instead of contradiction, percanggahan, ya. Lingkungan dengan ekonomi, and as well dengan kemajuan sosial. Ya. The contradiction between the environment, with the economic and social development, okay, it's contradict. But usually depends on what? The environment, the natural physical environment. Let's say in this case, climate change, natural disaster, disease, right? So that changes everything. Okay. And then as well in terms of business positions, right? If you look on the business position itself, okay, what we look on business position is how to achieve these superior business contributions. This is what, if you look those examples we discussed, let's say such as Apple, Amazon, they are superior in terms of contribution, how to sustain themselves in the industry. And as well, sometimes this paradox of growth can initiate the transformative change, and risky business can be good business. Something is risky, you know, as risky, right, can be a good business. That's the idiom says, high risk, high return. Okay. But if you dare to do so, kalau anda berani, silakan. Isn't it? Right? Kalau organisasi itu berani, yes, langsung aja. Right. So to conclude, right? So if we look on the sustainability, among those three factors, environment, economic, and social, we can see that environment as the most important factor. And as well, the internet capital as well has its own importance because why? To face the external environment. And that's why this continuous improvement should be taken seriously for any organization. They have to improve. Every organization in the particular industry have to improve. The companies have to improve in facing the external factors, environmental factors. Right? So I think that's how we should discuss on it. So yes, that's only from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zulmi. Okay, if you have any question, you can write it on the chat column. Maybe before that, I want to encourage the first Mr. and Mrs.
Yes.
Okay, based on your presentation, you say that
Yes.
the company sustainability come from the internal and the external, but sometimes and you also say that the pandemic was was giving a big impact to the company, right?
Okay.
And so how, excuse me?
Yes.
Well, I think it's not only a big company, right? That the pandemic give the impact, but also the medium company was also have the impact. So how the small business can survive if they want to survive, if they want to grow up their business? What can they do to improve that?
All right. Okay. This is my view. Okay. This is my view. Right. So we knew the impact is not, the large organization has its own impact, the large company, but the most affected will be the small and medium enterprises. Okay. Perusahaan kecil dan sederhana. Now the thing is, for those small and medium companies, right? So the issue to sustain, yes, it's a big challenge. Okay. Let's say, for example, because of COVID-19, that's unexpected, something unexpected, right? How to overcome, to make them survive. Okay. Let's say if it's not relevant with the environment, let's say in this case, pharmaceutical company. Okay, pharmaceutical company, example. Okay. So what does it mean here? Let's say pharmaceutical company, yes, they can survive because of COVID-19. But something is not related with COVID-19, that's the big challenge. So if we look, there are some examples, let's say in Malaysia, those SMEs try to change their core business. Yes, ubah perusahaannya, change their business, the core business, right? Let's say formally the, example, okay? Let's say manufacturing, might be they shifted to, service. It depends on the environment. Okay? There's no specific formula for it, but it depends the environment that we face. It's a good example right now, COVID-19, actually we knew, okay? Not all business model works. Tidak semua model perniagaan berjaya, model perusahaan berjaya. If you look right now, because COVID-19, formally if we learn in the management book, business book, this is formula, isn't it? But right now, because COVID-19, everything changed, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's quite unexpected, but something, let's say, is still in demand, they won't be affected. Okay, let's say food manufacturing, it won't be affected because COVID-19, isn't it? Food manufacturing, perusahaan makanan,
Catherine Sugera.
won't be affected. So it depends. For my opinion, it depends the situation. I mean the environment, right? So what we can say here, all those prescribed model in sustaining the business is not always work, but it depends on the environment. That's why, from my opinion, I will stress that we have to consider more in terms of the environmental factors. But in future, this is unexpected, something that we can predict in future, so we can have some kind of strategy to face it. That's the difference.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zulhilmi. Okay, maybe I read the question first from Joshua Manalu. Bagaimana sebuah perusahaan kecil bisa survive dengan sesuatu yang tak bisa diprediksi? Maybe Mrs. Retno can answer it first. Mrs.
Okay, thank you. I think this question is similar with our discussion first about
Yes, it is.
small business. Iya,
Just talk about it.
yang sudah dijelaskan oleh Mr. Zulhilmi ya, tapi it's okay. Jadi begini, bagaimana usaha kecil bisa survive dalam kondisi ketidakpastian saat ini. Jadi pertama tadi sudah dijelaskan oleh Mr. Zulhilmi juga adalah bagaimana internal capability kayak gitu. Ya, jadi kapabilitas internal perusahaan. Small business ini sebenarnya punya kelemahan di resources juga, termasuk juga dalam kapabilitas SDM-nya gitu kan ya. Jadi harus meningkatkan kualitas kewirausahaannya, di mana untuk lebih adaptif terhadap teknologi gitu. Jadi untuk UKM di Indonesia, pemerintah sekarang sedang memang menggalakkan pertumbuhan gitu, pertumbuhan untuk small business dengan digital transformation dan UKM naik kelas gitu. Jadi UKM naik kelas ini bagaimana produk UKM itu bisa sekelas dengan produk-produk yang ya berbranded seperti itu ya. Nah, salah satu upayanya adalah meningkatkan dengan kompetensi pelaku usahanya. Kemudian salah satu lagi adalah tadi adalah tagline transformasi digital merupakan roadmap ya. Arah pertumbuhan dari UKM di Indonesia saat ini. Jadi berbagai training gitu kan ya. Jadi UKM itu juga harus adaptif terhadap teknologi gitu. Jadi itu bisa meningkatkan digital agility. Jadi sekarang itu kalau imperatif tadinya ada digital agility, artinya bagaimana fleksibilitas ya perusahaan gitu ya, termasuk small business juga harus agile terhadap perkembangan digital. Jadi kalau di Indonesia seperti itu ya. Tidak semuanya sebetulnya UKM ini juga collapse gitu ya. Ada juga yang memiliki pertumbuhan, menurut data itu 27% gitu. Ada kenaikan di dalam sales-nya. Gitu. Dan saya kira untuk UKM ini punya satu kelebihan di mana dia lebih fleksibel untuk proses keputusan gitu ya. Karena small business itu biasanya adalah untuk pemilik gitu kan, sebagai manajer sekali itu bisa mengambil keputusan dengan cepat gitu, dan itu udah dibuktikan pada saat krisis gitu ya, krisis ekonomi di Indonesia tahun 98. Jadi itu ada satu kelebihannya. Kalau big company itu kan sebenarnya ada prosedur, ada birokratik dalam decision making gitu. Saya kira seperti itu ya untuk bisa tadi katakan bertahan dalam ini kondisi tadi ya. Unpredictable environment gitu. Siapa tadi ya? Joshua.
Oke, thank you, Mrs. Retno. Kita lanjutkan dengan pertanyaan dari Muhammad Salman Al-Farisi. If there are many customers who have demands that the company cannot fulfill, what should be done so that the company profit and efficiency level continue to increase, or at least remain normal? Thanks. Maybe Mr. Zulhilmi can answer it.
All right, okay, I'll try for this. Okay. So if we look again, right, the fulfillment of demand. Okay, let's say huge demand. The main issue here is this capabilities, isn't it? The capabilities, right? So instead of capabilities, it's the internal factors. So in this case, does it mean it will affect the profit? So if we say more demand can be fulfilled, they still can get the profit from it. But what the most concern is if we get less demand. That's the real issue here. Less demand. Okay? More demand, we don't think that they have problem with profit usually, but in terms how to provide the goods or service. Ya. Bagaimana menyediakan barangan dan juga layanan perkhidmatan. So in this case, to increase as normal. So I think in this case, I don't think that profit is not the issue here. It's efficiency, isn't it? The efficiency. Okay. So in this case, it's because of huge demand, they are incapable of meeting the demand. So in this case, the company should think something on how to add more facilities, right? So in this case, they might use financing, right, to expand the capabilities in meeting the demand, right? That's what the practice being made. Being made by some of those companies, right? Especially the SMEs, right? They try to, to apply for financing loans, but the challenge is, let's say if you look in this case, like COVID-19, right? And also some of the economic situation, right? Sometimes it's hard to get financing. That might be the limitation. So it depends. Sometimes we need as well the intervention from the government, assistance from the government on the SMEs. Let's say in the case of Malaysia, right? The Malaysian government, pemerintah Malaysia memberikan satu fasilitasi lah, ya, facilitation to those SMEs, perusahaan kecil dan sederhana, okay, to make sure they still survive. Okay? That's why the government intervention as well is important. For the SMEs, for the large corporation, that should be the only problem, isn't it? Even for large companies as well, you might look, sometimes there's a government intervention as well if the industry is important. So in this case, I can say that, yes, they have to try it first. But if the issue is major, affecting most of the SMEs, the small companies, right? Or maybe the large companies. So in this case, the government must take action. I think this example is for Indonesia, isn't it? Let's say in Indonesia. In Malaysia, we have that one as well. I think the same as well goes in Indonesia. Is that right? Ada campur tangan pemerintah. Kalau gitu. Kalau situasinya begitu, ada campur tangan pemerintah. So they try to fasilitasi daripada pemerintah ada. Itu perusahaan yang kecil.
Ada mungkin tidak banyak.
Tidak banyak ya?
Tidak banyak terasa.
Ya, walaupun tidak banyak, at least paling kurang, ya, paling kurangnya is still support, right? But to make it whole, to be successful, that's a big challenge. Because why? SME's main challenge is what? Financial. That's the main challenge for them. Finansialnya. Itu cabaran yang paling getir sekali. So they have to overcome this first, financial capabilities, to make them be successful. But in this case, according to the questions, okay, you say huge demand. So I think it's a real problem. But the real problem is how to meet the demand. That's the only thing. Okay, that's my view.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zanilmi. Maybe we can go into the next question. From Leonardi Suryananda. Triple bottom line in business are environment, social, and government. Why the triple bottom lines? It's very important in the industry. Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe Mr. Zulhilmi can answer it.
All right, okay, I'll try. Okay. All right. So in this case, right, what triple bottom line is very important in the industry, right? The environment, social, and the government. Okay? Environment is unpredictable. Social is the trend, and the government set up these policies. Now in industry, sometimes the government plays an important role in setting up the policies for the industry. So that's why it's very important. We can't escape these three. Environment, something is very unpredictable. Social trends, so we can predict the social trend, what's going to be next, isn't it? At least we can predict social. But government, changes in government, let's say every 5 years, changes of government, that will give such an effect to the industry, isn't it? Because change of policy. Okay? Berubahnya pemerintah, berubahnya kebijakan, isn't it? The change.
Yes, that's true.
Isn't it? That's true. Okay. It happen in any countries. Berlaku di mana-mana negara. Gitunya. Itu perubahannya. That's a change. So it's very important. Right? That's why we have to look all this to sustain. I mean, the organization need to look on these factors to sustain. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zulhilmi. And the last question is come from Zaki. Apabila sebuah strategi gagal, bagaimana cara antisipasi menyelesaikan strategi yang gagal tersebut? Mungkin dari Miss Retno?
Okay, I try to answer. Jika sebuah strategi gagal, ya artinya pertama, memang seorang pengusaha ya pelaku usaha itu punya resilience gitu kan ya, ketahanan, di mana ketahuan jika setiap saat itu ada perubahan, baik itu tercapai atau gagalnya satu strategi gitu. Jadi dalam sebuah proses manajemen strategi tadi saya sampaikan bahwa ada stage ya, ada fase di mana atau tahap evaluasi kayak gitu ya. Jadi mengevaluasi strategi, bagaimana kita harus melihat atau membandingkan antara target yang ingin dicapai dengan hasil yang aktual gitu, actual performance gitu, desired performance and actual performance-nya. Jadi kalau misalnya seperti itu, apa yang harus dilakukan berarti mengambil langkah ya, faktor-faktor apa yang menyebabkan kegagalan tersebut. Jadi dari faktor internal kita evaluasi lagi, analis lagi faktor internalnya apa ya, apakah dari sumber daya manusia, kemudian juga strategi di bidang resources marketingnya atau sistem informasinya gitu dari internalnya, atau juga dari lingkungan eksternal, apa yang bisa kita ambil ya pelajarannya dari lingkungan eksternal. Lingkungan eksternal itu supplier, industri, pesaing seperti itu. Kita udah menemukan faktor apa yang menyebabkan kegagalan tersebut, kemudian ambil langkah perbaikan selanjutnya. Jadi making new planning for next goal, next strategies. Jadi ambil kegagalan itu sebagai sebuah pelajaran untuk menetapkan strategi selanjutnya. Jadi kita tidak boleh ya untuk langsung terpuruk, tapi harus cepat mengambil tindakan antisipasi jika kegagalan tersebut jadi seperti itu. Nah, di sini adalah merupakan juga it's important of leader gitu ya, leader atau pemimpin untuk bisa cepat memotivasi ya dan meningkatkan semangat gitu dari timnya. Nah, ini teruji juga untuk leadership itu di during crisis gitu ya. Jadi CEO ini itu dibuktikan ya kapabilitasnya itu pada saat krisis dan menemui kegagalan. Nah, seperti itu. Saya kira itu jawaban dari saya, Miss Catherine.
Oke, berarti nanti seorang pimpinannya itu harus cepat tanggap lah ya, Bu Retno, seperti itu ya. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe the last question from our participant, and kita sudah masuk di akhir webinar kita siang hari ini. Tapi sebelum kita mengakhiri webinar kita siang hari ini, mungkin bagi mahasiswa dari Universitas Multidata Palembang bisa mengisi link absensi yang ada di kolom chat, sudah kita masukkan. Nanti untuk sertifikatnya juga boleh kita masukkan juga nanti di kolom chat. Ya, kita masukkan di kolom chat, nanti bisa download secara mandiri, dan kepada mahasiswa yang berasal dari luar Universitas Multidata Palembang nanti sertifikatnya akan kita email secara mandiri ke email yang sudah didata nanti ya. Oke, tapi before we closing the webinar, maybe you all can open your camera because I want to take a picture. Open all the camera, maybe. Okay, open all the camera. Okay, maybe I can start in slide 1. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, slide number 3. 1, 2, 3. Slide number 4. 1, 2, 3. And the last 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. First for the University Utara Malaysia, and thank you for our invited guest from Mr. Zulhilmi Amafauzi. Thank you for Miss Retno Budi Lestari to giving a presentation. And maybe that's all today. Kita akan mengakhiri webinar kita siang hari ini. Kita ketemu lagi di minggu depan di hari 2 minggu lagi ya, setelah Hari Raya Idul Fitri. Nanti kita akan melanjutkan webinar series kita yang keempat. Jadi teman-teman partisipan bisa join di grup webinar seriesnya sehingga kita bisa mengikuti webinarnya secara berkelanjutan. Oke, terima kasih. Selamat siang. Good afternoon, Mr. Zulhilmi. Thank you for your presentation.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang.
Selamat siang, terima kasih.
Siang, terima kasih.
Bye.
Ya, assalamualaikum.
Selamat siang, terima kasih.